All right, so we're going to keep talking about more protists here. So far, we've covered supergroup excavata and supergroup chromoaviolata. And our next one will be the Archaeplastids. So this is supergroup number 3. Again, it's not necessarily relevant to how they evolved or anything like that, just the order I'm covering them in. So again, don't think 1, 2, 3 was the order of evolution or anything like that. But here it is. This is the group we're going to start working on, Archaeplastids. And within the Archaeplastids, we're going to break it down to 4 subcategories. But the land plants we're actually going to tackle separately. So within Archaeplastids, we're going to tackle the Rhodophyta, the chlorophyta, and then the charophytes. Those will be the 3 key subgroups that we tackle here. So we'll get into those in just a little bit. So, all right, so key feature. Let me get rid of the hashtag and let's go to the red star again. What is the big key feature for a member of Archaeplastid? Well, that is going to be that these individuals acquired their chloroplasts through primary endosymbiosis. Okay, so this is a group that, and I'll show you the slide. We looked at it earlier, but I'll bring it back up, that acquired their chloroplasts through primary endosymbiosis, the Archaeplastids. That's their big key feature. So if you remember this slide when we talked about endosymbiosis and eukaryotic evolution, well, you had some heterotrophic eukaryotic cell, goes through primary endosymbiosis, begins working with other groups, organisms, whatever we want to call them, and this gives rise to the green algae, the red algae. Now, red or green based upon what particular other organism they evolved the endosymbiosis with, and somewhat what color they are. All right, so we're going to keep it that simple. So within the Archaeplastids, the 2 big categories will be Rhodophyta and then let me get rid of that, and then the green algae. And within the green algae, we have chlorophyta, we have charophyta, and then we have the land plants. Oh. But I want to put a little exclamation point on the land plants because we will tackle those guys separately. Plant evolution is a whole fascinating, interesting ball game. I'm going to pull those guys out and separate them and tackle plants under the kingdom Plantae. So we're just going to tackle Rhodophyta and then the green algae, and within the green algae, again, chlorophyta, charophyta. Okay? All right, so let's check out Rhodophyta and see what is unique and special about these guys, and what are the odds you've actually had some exposure to them today. So Rhodophyta are the red algae. They have red pigment in them. And they have they're using, oh, my O key is sticking. They have the photosynthetic pigment. Let me type it out here. Phycorarethin. That is the red pigment associated with members of Rhodophyta. So that gives them their characteristic red, I'm going to make it red color. So when we look at red algae, they have that red color because of the pigment that reflects the red wavelengths of light. Brown algae had fucoxanthin. We'll talk about green algae and look at their primary pigments. Diatoms had different pigments, etc. So pigment determines the color of the organism. That is a big feature here. When we look at them structurally, I don't need red anymore. Structurally, these guys lack they will lack any type of flagella and any type of centriole. So now if you remember, during meiosis and mitosis, animal cells use centrioles to act as anchors. Well, these guys don't have them. Plants don't have them either. So it's one of those evolutionary connections from algae to plants is they're missing certain structures or the absence of certain structures. Okay, other things to note, ecological things. There is a I'm running out of room. There is a red algae found on coral reefs called coralline algae. This is generically, we call it reef glue. It's that red stuff that helps hold coral reefs together. It's literally locks chunks of limestone together to create this incredibly strong, durable structure. Other important features of the coralline algae: it can be turned into a thickening agent for things like ice cream, cosmetics, agar. Anybody who's a fan of nori, that sushi rolls, that's made often with variations, but different types of red algae and members of the Rhodophyta. So ecologically important, binds things together on the coral reef, photosynthetic, so it's a producer. Those are all the important ecological roles. When we talk about ecology, I want you guys to think about what is the function of that particular organism or species in an ecosystem. Not what does it do for us, what is its natural ecological job. Okay, so those are the main things I want you to know with Rhodophyta, big key features, the general characteristics. So now we're going to talk about the green algae. Green algae is by far more diverse than the reds and the browns. Green algae is the ancestor of land plants. And we'll talk about this more when we go to plants. When we talk about kingdom Plantae and look at the land plants, we'll go back or we'll fall back to the green algae and say, okay, how did green algae evolve to a terrestrial existence? And I'll show you guys, we'll walk through that path, through that evolutionary process. Big key feature of the green algae. Let me get out my little red star. Okay, so big key feature here for the green algae. And I'm going to actually do this way to remember a little bit better. Hopefully color is okay, you guys can see it. But with the green algae, they have chloroplasts. So the chloroplasts. The chloroplasts or chloroplast are those little bags that contain the pigments. The pigments being chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and even some of the carotenoids. But this is what gives them their characteristic green color that they use for photosynthesis. So out of all the algae, you get reds, you have browns, you have these tans, or we can call them goldens. And then we have the greens. The greens are photosynthetically the best because they draw in more wavelengths of light than any of the other algae. The two subgroups of green algae we are going to focus on and talk about excuse me, will be the chlorophyta and the charophytes. So those will be the two subgroups, chlorophyta, charophyta. Don't worry, we'll draw out. I'll do the review slide a little bit later here, but those will be the two subgroups under green algae I want you guys to be comfortable with. Okay? All right, so let's dive into the chlorophyta and take a look at them, or chlorophytes. Chlorophytes come in a variety of shapes, sizes, primarily this green in color, but shapes and sizes. Some of them are single-celled, some of them function as multicellular, so there's a pretty big diversity here. It's estimated they've been around for about 900 million years, so pretty good time frame on Earth. They are going to be cousins to land plants. So they split, or technically the more appropriate term is diverged, from land plants about 1 billion years ago. So some ancestor to land plants and chlorophytes existed 1 billion years ago, and then they diverged, and green algae, or the chlorophytes, went one direction, land plants went a different direction. Land plants went primarily on land. Green algae, or these chlorophytes, many of them are aquatic species. There are some that are terrestrial, though. All right, so when we're looking at them, Cladomonas renarti is one variety. If you look down here, this is Cladomonas here. Let me get the pen. This little guy here, it's a single-celled chlorophyte, runs photosynthesis, moves around. It's got 2 flagella over here. That's going to help it swim and zip around. Now remember, red algae lack the flagella. Green algae, some of them have flagella. Volvox is another type of chlorophyte, but difference here with Volvox, Volvox is colonial. So all the different green algae, the chlorophytes here, aggregate together to form a big ball, but they still kind of work on their own. Ova, that's actually the picture right there. That's an ova. That's a type of multicellular green algae. So, but most of the single-celled chlorophytes are going to be part of plankton loads. So part of that plankton load within aquatic ecosystems. So again, we got a lot of diversity here, a lot of variety. Cladomonas itself is found in moist environments. Oh, I got spelled right. They live in moist environments. And these guys can go dormant when they're stressed, stressed being dry. Very adaptable. One neat feature about some of the chlorophytes, it's not a Cladomonas feature, but some of the chlorophytes, is that they will actually form a mutualistic relationship with fungus. So if you guys take a look at this stuff here, see that green thing right there? Kind of looks like leaves all over the branch. That is what's called a lichen. So when members of the chlorophytes form this little relationship with a lichen or with a fungi, then they produce an organism we call lichen. And we're going to talk about lichens later in this unit when we get into fungus. But again, a pretty diverse, very widespread group of organisms. Some of these guys will be found in terrestrial environments, marine environments, all over the place. So again, big diversity when we're looking at them. Some of them are single cell. They're just one single cell. When it comes to reproduction, this is where it gets really goofy. They can have sexual and asexual reproduction here. So this is Cladomonas. Cladomonas zips around as a haploid organism. That's what's weird about it. Is it completely functional? Here's Cladomonas. Tuloflagella. Zipping around with half the genetics, haploid. And it can live an entire life as this haploid individual. And if it wants to reproduce, it literally copies itself. Asexual reproduction. Make a clone. Now there's 2, there's 4, there's 8, there's 16, and away you go. Your little zoospores. But during stress, and let me make this really big, during stress is when Cladomonas will say, let me shift over and go sexual reproduction. So I want you guys to think about this and look this up. I'm not going to give you the answer here, but why would you have sex when you're stressed? Lots of answers, I'm sure, popped immediately into people's heads. Look it up and look at what is the evolutionary benefit of doing it. But when stressed, we get a positive strain Cladomonas and a negative strain Cladomonas getting together. Wow, there they are. They're going to fuse, a little thing called syngamy. They fuse together and they blend their DNA, and now they're a zygote, 2N. The zygote undergoes meiosis. So it's one cell, it divides and it divides. Just like the meiosis process we see in animals, it's going to divide, and it's going to produce new positive and negative strain individuals that come out of the zygote here. They bust out and they go swimming away. They can go through asexual reproduction, or they could meet up with somebody of the other strain and do sexual again. So, like I said, a very interesting reproductive strategy. So, okay, I'm going to pause it here, and then I will let you guys pick up on the next part 4 of the lecture.